So hi everyone. So I'm Helen Milner, as you've heard. So I'm the Group Chief Exec at Good Things Foundation. We're a national and international digital inclusion charity, and I'm here to give a keynote about the digital divide. And hopefully I'll have some time for some questions afterwards. So looking forward to this, to sharing some of my knowledge and ideas with you. So Good Things Foundation, as I said, we're the UK's leading digital inclusion charity. We work all across the whole of the UK, and we have a mission to fix the digital divide for good. And our two end of 2025 goals are to engage 1 million people and to grow the UK digital inclusion network to over 5,000 organisations. And I'm hoping you can help me with both of those. We're research-led and evidence-based. We create partnerships such as the Data Poverty Lab that we've created with Nominet. We also have a subsidiary in Australia. We build platforms for learning and measuring impact, and the main one that we have is the Learn My Way place-based digital skills development. So Learn My Way, 30 plus online courses, and we have a national device bank working at scale with refurbished devices. So let's have a look at what my definition is, and we might want to come back to this. So people are digitally excluded because they lack motivation to use the internet, confidence with digital technology, or they lack the digital skills to carry out basic tasks on the internet. Or they can't afford a device for personal internet use, or they can't afford sufficient connectivity data. And I'll come back to some of this definition a bit later on. That particularly down where you are in Cornwall, the lack of access due to connectivity, I'm sure, is incredibly frustrating. But the research shows that actually poor connectivity is usually an issue of quality of experience, not about exclusion. So less than 0.5% of people say they do not use the internet because they do not have connectivity available to them somewhere, be it at home or work or somewhere else. Each year we publish an infographic, so this is it for 2022, Digital Nation. And we do this so we can collate together facts and stats about who's offline, who's online, and what the benefits are for that. And that we want everybody to have local support and community support, be able and safe online, and have affordable internet access. And I'll zoom in on some of these bits of data, but obviously you can find all of this information on our website. So nearly 1 in 5 adults lack the most basic digital skills. So that's about 10 million people, and 2 million households struggle with affordability of internet access. So UK-wide, this is a really big issue. The pandemic definitely helped. So more people went online during COVID-19, the 2-year period. And 1.5 million people actually did more online during that period of time. But actually in some groups, particularly older and disabled people, digital engagement actually declined. So the way that I think of it is that during the pandemic, the digital divide did narrow, but it also deepened. On that Digital Nation 2022, you will have seen the map in the top that has some of the regions and nations differences on here. Southwest is a pretty average, I would say, good to average, with 44% of people in the southwest of England are extensive users of the internet. So that's not even half. I think that's really surprising for a lot of people. And then 27% of the population are what's called limited users, and there will be another percentage of the population who have never used the internet. So that's more than a quarter of people in the southwest are limited users, and then on top of that you would have your people who had never used the internet at all. And the reasons why the barriers for people to not be online: it's too expensive, it's too complicated, they don't have the right equipment, and they don't see the relevance of it, they don't have that motivation. So thinking about some of the benefits of being online, we worked with the Centre for Economic and Business Research, supported by Capita, to look at the economic benefits of digital inclusion. So this is 2022. And we found that the net present value would be £12.3 billion. So the total benefit is 13.7 billion, and the cost of that is 1.4 billion over a 10-year period, with a return of almost £9.50 for every £1 invested. I think the interesting thing is, if you look at that 1.4 billion is the cost, if you just look at the money that the government would save by people being able to use the internet just for government transactions, that is 1.4 billion. So actually, if that was the only saving, only economic benefit that the government, say if the government paid for this, the government had, then they actually would make that efficiency saving. They would recoup that money in its entirety just through efficiency savings. And the benefits for people, so not just the economic benefits, but there's economic benefits for people. So the most digitally engaged pay 228 less on their bills per year than the least digitally engaged. Manual workers, comparing very high digital engagement to low digital engagement, they actually earn £421 more per year than the less digitally engaged peers. People say they're healthier. That's obviously a topic for today. 49% of people say that digital helps them to manage and improve their physical and mental health. People are better connected with friends and family, and I've mentioned the benefit for the government. So at Good Things Foundation, we worked with the DFE over 7 years from 2014 on a program called the Future Digital Inclusion Program, and we supported 1.5 million people through that program. And these are some of those outcomes. That people progressed on to further learning and onto employment-related activity. 20%, so this is a staggering number, I think, so 20% of the people that were supported, so 300,000 people, actually went on to get a job. And remember, this is about helping people to learn those very basic digital skills to use the internet. That 20% of them went on to a job is, I think, a phenomenal number. And obviously there's other softer outcomes around improved self-confidence, improved independence, and ability to help other people, which is also really important. Wanted to give you a story. So John was supported through Good Things Foundation and our local partner in Bridport. John is profoundly deaf and also doesn't speak, and his only method of communication is sign language. During lockdown, we gave him a free smartphone and a free SIM, and he said it was an absolute lifesaver for him. It opened up a whole new world, because before that he could only communicate with his friends by texting. But once he got the smartphone, he was then actually able to see his friends, and they could use sign language with one another. I actually had the great pleasure to be on a radio interview with John, which was incredibly moving because he doesn't speak. He spoke through a sign language interpreter, and he actually at one point said, "I have to pause because I'm so overcome trying to explain what an absolute a lifesaver, life changer, just being that connected to the internet through that smartphone gave to him during the pandemic lockdowns." And then with Good Things Foundation, clearly we have reached people at scale. We work at scale, but also we drive those positive outcomes for people. So 33% of people supported made fewer visits to their GP, swapping I'm going to say inappropriate, but the swapping obviously visits the GP that they could do onto online services, and 77% went on to use government services, and 52% felt less lonely, which I think is a fantastic number when looking at those soft skills that digital inclusion bring as well. But we do need to change. So we're doing a lot. We've done a lot. I'm sure there's lots of people in the room have done a lot. Obviously, your project, your program, you've done a lot. But actually, the current pace is not going to actually fix that digital divide. We need tailored and trusted approach to supporting the most vulnerable, and we need a strong social infrastructure for social inclusion. As I said earlier, the pandemic made a difference, and I just wanted to point out these two. So actually, the number of people who said that nothing would encourage them to go down went down between those first 2 years of the pandemic. And remarkably, and this may well be because people were isolated, cut off from others, but up from 5% to 35% of people said that local support would be the easiest way to learn new digital skills. We have the way that Good Things Foundation works. Everything we do is we work through a network of support in hyperlocal places. So this is just an example of some of those across the UK. They might be Redbridge Institute, so a formal, that's a further education college. Smartline is a small community organisation in Birmingham. We have libraries, and Age Connects, Age UK, Citizens Advice Bureau, food banks, a fish and chip shop, cafes, community buses in rural areas, people doing driving around, going to village halls and pubs. So I call this a big club with a shared vision. So anybody who who wants to be part of that network can be part of that network and can use everything that we provide for free and provide support for people locally for free. So just to refresh, why are people not online? Because it's too expensive, too complicated, don't have the right equipment, and they see no interest. So during the pandemic, for the first time, we supported people with devices and mobile connectivity, as you saw with John. And that so we, after the pandemic, after the lockdown period of pandemic, we decided that we should create a new strategy to embed that access piece alongside the skills piece. So our new offer to fix the digital divide has these three elements: National Digital Inclusion Network, the National Data Bank. So we have 500,000 SIMs. We established that working with Virgin Media O2, and in the data bank we have SIMs from O2, Vodafone, and Three. So hopefully enough SIMs for everybody to go round, and I know there's more to come if we need it. And a national device bank taking devices from large companies, large public sector and other organisations, and then refurbishing those and getting those out to the people who need it at that local level. And as I said, all of this, the support we provide for the network, Learn My Way, networking, training, and the data bank and the device bank is all free for anybody who wants to be part of that big club to support people. So local organisations being that trusted face in that local place, and Good Things Foundation's that strong scaled social infrastructure, UK-wide and sustainable. So hopefully all of us doing the right, what we're best at. One of the things that O2 has done this just recently is created a map of the nearest data bank, so through the National Data Bank, and I went on to find one near you, and unfortunately the nearest one that is on this map is Weston-super-Mare. There's around 250 on this map. There are about 780 local organisations that are providing free mobile connectivity through the National Data Bank, but clearly none down where you are. So if anybody is doing that or would like to provide it, then please do get in touch, because you can be on this map too, and you can provide that support for people in your local area. For you, I thought it'd be interesting to pick out some of the work that we've done around health. So I'm sure you've had a long conversation this morning already about how digital is now a wider determinant of good or poor health. We know that people who live in lower socioeconomic groups typically have a much lower mortality rate. We know that digital affects people's ability to get work, to get education, to do homework. It affects people's social connection and participation. It affects housing. It affects their ability to earn money, to save money, to claim benefits, and to manage their bills. And all of those things are actually wider determinants of health as well as purely the access to the health system as well. We worked for 7 years with the NHS on a program called the Widening Digital Participation Program. We supported large numbers of people. The numbers there are actually from the phase 2 of that program. And we've got a couple of reports on our website about the role of digital and how it can help in health and care settings, and how it can actually support prevention, but also preventing poor health, but also help with improved health outcomes. And I also wanted to mention Digital Lifeline because I thought, again, that might be of interest to you today. So last year we worked with the Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sport and a partner called AbilityNet, and 146 hyperlocal community partners across England to support 5,500 people with devices, with mobile connectivity, and with adapted kit for their own additional needs, and that hyperlocal support from local organisations such as the ones I mentioned already, but also self-advocacy groups and local charities that specialise in supporting people with learning disabilities. And these are some of the outcomes of that programme. People felt more confident, had improved their digital skills, feel more connected, feel less lonely, had improved health and well-being, felt more confident, and were better able to participate in their community. And some of these great things that people said, it's been brilliant, opened up a lot of opportunities, makes me feel more confident, helps me calm down if I'm upset. These are adults with learning disabilities going online and getting help to use the internet. So almost finally, I thought I'd share some hints and tips. This might be familiar to many of you and you may already be doing lots of these things. So I would always say embed digital inclusion in what's already happening, and that's particularly important in housing, in health and social care. We work with hundreds and hundreds of local small charities to do with employment or to support women fleeing domestic violence or people looking for work. So embed it in what you're already doing, not a bolt-on and not a project. Don't reinvent the wheel. There's lots going on. Sometimes it can be difficult to find it. So we definitely don't need another basic digital skills platform. We've got Learn My Way, as I said, all free, all mapped to the Essential Digital Skills Framework. Super simple to use, mobile optimized, and it has text to speech if you can't read, but there's others, Digital Unite, Barclays, Lloyds, IDEA, BT. The data bank and the device bank exist. The data bank is scaled and is growing across the country. People can join that. Local organisations can join it, and the device bank is just scaling up now. So that actually they're there. There's lots of research and heat maps, and there are lots of local community organisations. So please do seek them out. Work in partnership, build on what's already available, or co-design, co-develop, and deliver together. But be ambitious and get going. If you're not already going, because I'm sure lots of the people in the audience are already working on many of these things. And finally, we're a strategic partner with Virgin Media O2, and this Christmas they have a Christmas advert that talks about the National Data Bank and encourages people to go locally to get free connectivity. And our logo is on the end of this Christmas ad about the snowgran, and I just thought I would finally, just as a final feel-good, show this Christmas ad to you all. So let's hope this works.
We set up the National Data Bank to help those in need stay connected. Send free data to someone who needs it on us. Search your tool Christmas SIM card. We're better connected.
Just go back to my slides. And so that's it from me. Together we can fix the digital divide for good. And please do follow us on Twitter and get in touch if you want more information. But I'm over to you now for questions.
Hello. First a comment and then a question. You didn't mention unreliability of broadband reception as a reason for disincentivizing people to use the system, which is a great problem in Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly at the moment. Second thing is a question. You didn't mention anything about the relationship between people and using smart meters, which is another terrible problem.
Yeah, so on the connectivity, I mentioned it right near the beginning when I looked at definitions, and I absolutely understand that it's a disincentive. It's the research shows that that's about quality of connection, and often it's that people are not online for reasons other than the fact they have poor connectivity. I'm not saying you don't have poor connectivity. I absolutely believe that you do have poor connectivity, but the research shows that it's not a major reason why people are not ever using the internet. And smart meters, I think that's really interesting that that smart meters are both a issue, but also has been flagged as a potential opportunities where people don't have broadband in their home and actually could get it through a smart meter scheme. Is that a way in which data the internet connectivity, broadband connectivity, could be brought into the home for those who don't have it? So I fully understand again that it can be an issue, but it also potentially could present as an opportunity.
Thanks, Helen. Emma Bland from the Smartline project here. Really interesting talk, and thank you very much. I also have a comment. One of the findings we've had within Smartline, for reasons that people are unable to address the digital divide, if that's the right terminology, is just that I don't think it's quite covered by your categories. It's people who are under significant pressure and simply don't have the mental capacity, headspace, ability to address yet another challenge at that particular point in time. And I don't think that's just about complication or about lack of understanding or interest. I think it is actually a different social criteria, and particularly in our surveys, we found it affects those that have caring responsibilities or have poor health themselves. So I think there is a category there of people that are just simply too stressed, too pressured already to take on another challenge. But my question to you was this: I'm interested in whether or not you will ever resolve and address the entire digital divide. And I'd be interested in your views on this. I feel that I am gradually disempowering myself by my ability to keep up with technology and maintain kind of constant use. I used to feel I was quite digitally able, and now the university has introduced new schemes of sharing folders, new methods of social media coming out constantly. I don't use them. I simply don't have the interest or the capacity. And I wonder whether actually you've chosen a really good job, because I think whether you will ever be out of work, whether you think it is possible to ever fill that digital divide.
So there's two different answers. One is I prefer to think of basic internet skills as being like passing a driving test. So when I'll kind of openly admit, when I passed my driving test, I wasn't really a very good driver, but I had enough. I had enough skill. I had enough knowledge And then I drove on a motorway for the first time. I drove at night for the first time. I drove in the rain for the first time. I drove other people's cars the first time. I drove a hire car in a foreign country for the first time. And so actually, gradually, as I was challenged, I did things that I didn't need to be taught how to do, but they were challenging me and they were growing my experience and my skills. And I think I would say back to you is that you might not be able to use the latest forms of social media, but that's, I think, as you admitted, because you're not interested. But actually, if you need to pay a bill online or you need to communicate with somebody urgently, or actually, I would probably hazard a guess that everything that you need to do, that you can actually do. So a bit like that basic driving license, that you've got enough skill to be able to do what you need to do. So I would like to think that if we can support people to have if they want to, okay, because I think that's another area, and I'll come to that in a moment. But if you want to learn, and if you can't afford it, let's break down those affordability barriers. If you want to learn and you have the headspace to do it, or if it is relevant to you right now, then that you can get that support from a hyperlocal partner, from a trusted organisation near you. And so that you can get up to that point would be the equivalent of passing your driving test when we learn to drive. And then after that, you have enough that you can update where you need, and also hopefully you also have enough sort of social connections so that there are other people around you who could help to enhance and help on top of that. So I'm a little of a minority, because there's lots of people who think that technology will change at such a pace and will become so different at such a pace that actually those of us who have learned how to use the internet now, and if we stop, then we won't be able to keep pace with that. I hope not. I hope that I'm right, but as I said, I'm in a minority. But there are people who don't want to use the internet. I once was interviewed for a Telegraph article, like the Telegraph newspaper. The headline was something like, "Old people don't want to use the internet," or something. Obviously not my headline at all. And I got a very angry letter from a man who was in his late 80s, who's still driving a car and didn't use the internet, was perfectly happy, thank you very much. And I think that obviously if people understand the benefits, that they're not disengaged or they don't experience exclusion because of it, then obviously I think that clearly there will always be some people who either can't use it, or who have chosen not to use it.
Hi, Ellen. A two-part question coming from online. Do you think public, private and voluntary sectors are working together effectively to tackle the digital divide? I'll let you answer that, and then I'll come back to you with the other bit.
Okay. So there's always more, right? There's always more that we can all do. I actually think at the moment it's pretty good. The private sector is doing a lot. That we work with a number of large private sector companies, and we are contacted quite often by the private sector who want to help do employee giving programs, or want to volunteer, as an example, as well as provide funding. I think the third sector, or the charity sector, is doing a huge amount. The community sector, a huge amount. Embedding it into their work at that local level, and are supporting people who come in and whoever have a need. And the public sector, I think, is probably a bit patchier. That many local authorities are doing absolutely brilliant work, that many combined authorities are doing great work. But I think at central government level, I mean, this current government, their digital inclusion strategy is from 2014, and I think that probably says a lot. That it was great that 1 million devices were sent out to school children during the lockdowns and the pandemic, but there doesn't seem to have been much of a strategy around that. So I think that at the central government level, more could be done, and particularly more could be done in that strategic joining up across departments.
Thank you. And do you have any recommendations for how we could work together better?
I'm not quite sure who's the we. I mean, we can all work together better. I think, obviously, knowing more about one another. So obviously, you all know a little bit more about Good Things Foundation, and so that you can now hopefully look us up and work with us and join the network. Being part of that National Digital Inclusion Network also joins you up with other people in that network, other people who are working in digital inclusion. I think, though, it's really about how can we best target. And so, for example, the Local Government Association earlier today had a digital inclusion network meeting, and local authorities are invited to that. It's really about how do we find out about each other. And I think that's why that, I mean, not only does that O2 Christmas ad warm the cockles of my heart, it also, people are getting in touch with us because they want to join the data bank. You know, local organisations want to be able to provide free mobile connectivity to people that they're supporting on very low incomes, and they know that this is an issue. And so actually raising the profile of opportunities, of offers, but also of other organisations is absolutely paramount.
Are there any more questions in the room for Helen? I think, Helen, you're joining us later on the panel, aren't you? So there will be more opportunities to give questions to Helen. Okay, I think that's it for now then, Helen. Thank you very much for your very informative talk.